Welcome to the Armageddon TV YouTube channel. The superiority of the Ukrainian armed forces over the Russian army infuriated Putin. This unnecessary war that Putin has put the Russian army in may be forcing him to make mistakes. The latest news from Russia shows that Putin no longer cares if a major tactical failure occurs as a result of his own order. Putin himself is responsible for all the losses to date. However, he never accepts this responsibility. For the Russian people, a sacrifice is needed. While the Russian army has so many problems, Putin is further reducing the strength of the army by paying the Russian generals the bill for the losses. Since the first days of the war in Ukraine, Putin has continued to fire his generals. At the end of each defeat, an enraged Putin dismisses another general, making him a victim. According to another view, one of the reasons for Putin sending the Russian army to war may be the dismissal of high-ranking generals in the Russian army, because Putin, who became the head of the Russian Federation in 1999, became more autocratic as he took the power. While Putin is running the Russian Federation, he is afraid of any authority other than himself. One of the elements that Putin sees as his rivals are high-ranking officers in the Russian army. Even before the Ukraine war began, Russian President Vladimir Putin allegedly used various methods to dismiss high-ranking generals from the military. Believing that Russian generals who remained in the same post for a long time could pose a threat to him, one of the previous methods used by Putin to get rid of these generals was to send them to the front lines in Syria. During the complex civil war in Syria, many top Russian generals were assassinated or sabotaged. In addition, it is noteworthy that high-ranking generals in the Russian army were retired before their term of office was extended. The last method Putin uses to get rid of the Russian generals, whom he fears may seize power, may be to put the responsibility of the war in Ukraine on them. There are even rumors that Putin is sending his generals, whom he wants to get rid of faster, to the fronts in Ukraine with a low chance of success. After successive failures due to the incompetence and slowness of the Russian army in recent operations, angry Putin fired 6 more generals. The reason he gave was that he thought the Russian army could not advance fast enough in the area. The Kremlin expected Ukraine to fall within days. 6 months later, an enraged Putin seems to have lost his patience. The UK Ministry of Defense has confirmed that Putin and Defense Secretary Sergei Shoigu have probably dismissed at least 6 generals for not acting quickly enough in the invasion. As Russia was pushed back in the south of Ukraine and entered a bloody stalemate in the east, Mr. Shoigu claimed that Russian forces had slowed their advance to avoid civilian casualties. The British Ministry of Defense said it was clearly deliberate misinformation. Russia's offensive stalled due to poor Russian military performance and Ukraine's fierce resistance. Under Shoigu's orders, forces operating in Ukraine repeatedly missed their scheduled operational timelines. Shoigu and President Putin's dismissal of at least 6 generals for not progressing fast enough is seen as a move by them to cover up their own losses. Because on the day of Mr. Shoigu's announcement, a Russian SS-26 Iskander short-range ballistic missile crashed into a train in the town of Chaplin. It was stated that many Ukrainian civilians were killed in the attack. But Putin thinks he can win the war in Ukraine no matter what. For this reason, the region continues its pressure on the army away from the realities. Putin ordered a new siege of Kharkiv for his war-weary and psychologically resigned army. Ukraine's second city was the target of fierce attacks in the early stages of the war, but Russian forces withdrew from the area in May to accelerate Putin's advance through Russia's eastern Donbas region. In fact, the pressure of the Ukrainian armed forces in this process pushed the Russian army to the Russian border. Ukrainian forces prevented Russian troops from besieging, let alone capturing, Kharkiv, and then drove them out from all over the city, as they had done to Russian forces trying to capture them. Whatever happens, no matter how big a defeat, Kharkiv will continue to be one of the priority regions for Russia. The region, which is in a very important position in the region due to its geographical location, is of critical importance for both Russia's siege of Kiev and the Donbas offensive. Kharkiv is the heart of Kharkiv Oblast and is a city close to Russia. It is also an important communication hub where major highways lead to a number of important cities in Ukraine and Russia, including Kiev and Zaporizhia, especially Moscow. Thus, taking Kharkiv would be important not only to take full control of Kharkiv Oblast and hold a Russian-speaking referendum there where the majority of the population has economic ties to Russia, but also to hold a referendum there. From a logistical point of view, it would be ideal for Moscow to supply troops directly from Kharkiv. Another issue that made the Kharkiv region important was the attacks on Izium, the region currently used by Russia as a military center. With each attack from the Kharkiv region, the Russian army in Izium had to retreat or be defeated. They also lost a lot, but there's a point to be noted there. Even when the Russian army was at its strongest, it could not capture the city of Kharkiv or the Kharkiv region. Currently, we are witnessing many Russian troops fighting with equipment from the Soviet era. It is believed that Vladimir Putin used old Soviet equipment in the Ukraine war because the Russians were annoyed by the loss of troops and weapons. According to the Ukrainian military, the Russian death toll in Ukraine currently stands at more than 46,000. In addition, 7 Russian tanks and 6 armored personnel vehicles were destroyed. The Ukrainian armed forces provide daily updates on Russia's losses, including aircraft, helicopters, artillery missiles, boats, and other equipment. In total, Ukraine claims to have removed more than 10,000 vehicles and other items since Russia invaded 6 months ago. In response to heavy losses, Russia is now launching obsolete Soviet equipment with the aim of replenishing its army. The predictions seem to be confirmed by the fact that we are seeing more and more old Russian and Soviet equipment taken to the field. No one seems to have the equipment they had in February. Removed from warehouses are old personnel carriers and tanks that were obsolete even at the end of the Cold War. It is almost impossible to make any progress in the war with this equipment. The situation becomes even more dramatic for the Russian army, especially considering that the Ukrainian armed forces currently have state-of-the-art weapons from the West. Ukraine is currently in a dilemma as to whether to launch a ground offensive in the south. Kyiv does not risk losing everything by launching a counterattack and regularly weakens the Russian army even more. Ukraine has good reasons to resist an early call for aggression from war-torn foreigners. A failed counterattack would be a dramatic defeat for Ukrainian prospects. In addition to the political implications, a failed offensive could open gaps and vulnerabilities in Ukraine's defensive position, enabling Russian counterattacks that could seize additional territory. An unsuccessful counterattack could also result in a Russian offer of a ceasefire to Moscow on extremely advantageous terms, a possibility that Kiev would prefer to avoid. This is an outcome that Kiev has not wanted for a long time. There is little doubt that the Ukrainians inflicted serious damage on the Russians, including both field forces and logistics systems. Simply wearing down the Russian forces will not force them to evacuate Ukraine. Armies do not usually collapse simply because of attrition. The threat and practice of maneuver warfare must force them to engage, at which point the extent of the damage becomes clear. An army defending from static positions can withstand logistical deficiencies and heavy combat, but can disperse when attacked with intent to invade or besiege. In order to enjoy strategic success, damage to Russian forces must be accompanied by the liberation of real lands of strategic importance. However, the absolute necessity of a ground operation for this will always remain an option that will be kept at hand, but will not be used until the last moment, because Ukraine does not have a chance to take a wrong step like Russia. Most of their ammunition was supplied with support from the West, and most of this ammunition is for long-range combat. It is known that the necessary tanks and equipment for the ground operation were not fully transferred from the West. For this reason, Kyiv wants to move towards victory with calmer and more confident steps instead of acting hastily like Putin on this issue.